my gosh, I am so excited for you to meet today's guest. Laurie Ehrlich helps schools and nonprofits and others to use social media in a great way to engage. And I swear we did not collaborate on any of this, but oh my goodness, I felt like I was listening to myself, but in a better accent because she's from Maryland. She's just got a lot of wisdom to share with you today. We're going to talk about threads. We're going to talk about Twitter. We're going to talk about posting strategy for Instagram. We're going to talk about 3 things you're probably getting wrong. We're going to be talking about student voice and how to use students in your storytelling. We're going to be talking about analytics and what's good and bad. I mean, this is like a masterclass in social media for schools, just in time to kick off things for this new school year. So I love it. I'm so excited for you to meet Laurie. But just a reminder, quick, I help people for free a lot with like things like this podcast and my blog and my helpful newsletter. That's totally free. But I also have a membership group where I do weekly trainings. Laurie's actually going to be featured in an upcoming training because what she has is so awesome. So to get in that group, it's usually an annual subscription. But until the end of August, which you only have a few days left, August 31st, 2023, that's the last day you can try out the membership for 6 months for $395 for your district. You guys, attracting or retaining one student in your school is worth thousands and thousands of dollars. This is it's a fraction of the price, and you're going to get amazing training and support and ideas to help you engage with your community, with potential students, with potential parents, and with current parents and current students to retain those families. So it's a great thing. Rhonda Pounds, she's the public relations director in Ashdown Public Schools in Arkansas. She is a very active member. She gets so much out of it. And just her words are, Andrea and her crew are awesome, and the services they provide are second to none. Being a part of her membership brings a space to share experiences and ideas that cannot be found anywhere else. So just want to invite you in. It's the last chance again to sign up for 6 months. You can always sign up for 1 year, but now is the time to jump in and just try it out and see, is this really worth it? Like, am I going to get a lot of use out of it? Is it going to make my social media that much better? I think it is. And I'd love for you to try it, but it ends on August 31st. Okay, now let's get to today's K-12 PR tip. All right, today's K-12 PR tip is simple as we start this new 23-24 school year. Social media is really a place to highlight the happy. I actually have new magnetic frames that I'm giving out when I go for my in-person talks to remind people to highlight the happy. That's really what social media is about. It doesn't mean that there's not tough stuff that's going on, things that you have to communicate in other ways, through direct email, text messaging, on your website. But social media is really the spot to highlight those great things that are happening. And so I hope that you're involving your entire staff in getting some of those stories to be able to put out on your social media channels. But this year, we really want that focus to highlight the happy. There's enough negativity going on. People are talking about that stuff without your help. Okay. So we want to really get in there and put emphasis on the great things that are happening. So I hope that you're going to do that. And you are going to do that with some great tips that you get from Laurie today. So without any further delay, let's meet Laurie Ehrlich. Good morning, Laurie. I am very excited to have you on the podcast. I've got Laurie Ehrlich today. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, how's it going, Andrea?
I'm good. And like, we are 2 peas in a pod in this social media world. And so as soon as we met, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to have you on my podcast. So could you just start by sharing your background and a little bit of your mission with Elevate Marketing Strategies?
Sure, absolutely. So I started my independent consulting firm about 2 years ago. This was after serving as the first director of marketing communications for the Charles E. Smith Jewish Day School in Maryland. And, my real impetus for going out on my own was as a result of sitting in an in-house position. I really saw that many marketing professionals, they needed somebody who is external. They needed that perspective to lift them out of the day to day, whether it's on a one off project, on a retainer basis, on a coaching basis. And, having sat in that spot, I've been able to serve those needs to the best of my ability because I understand the school environment. I understand public schools, private schools, charter schools. And I feel like I've been able to add a lot of value. I concentrate mostly on nonprofits and schools. So I'm able to specialize in that way and really be able to provide customized services to those industries.
That's awesome. And so you are located in Massachusetts, is that right?
Maryland, right outside the DC,
Maryland.
right outside Washington, DC. Yep.
Okay, awesome. I need to get back to Washington, D.C. And then what
It's
was
too
your
hot here right now. Don't come.
Oh yeah, that's very, very true. It's hot here though. It's going to be in the 90s today, but anyways, but I know it's in the hundreds or 110s there, right?
The heat index is ridiculous over the summer.
That is crazy. So what was your role with the Jewish Day School? Like exactly what was your title?
Yes. So my title was Director of Marketing and Communications. And
Okay.
when I came in, they had never had that director role before. They had a marketing associate who did the day-to-day social media, email, website maintenance, regular communications, but no one who came in from a strategic perspective to say, this is how marketing should be partnering with admission and development. This is how the school's brand needed to be stewarded. This is how the marketing department needs to partner with faculty in order to exude the mission of the school. So I was really able to do that in a number of ways. I counted once and I supported 25 different departments, divisions, areas at the school, which was, it was challenging because there's so many different constituencies, but it was also so much fun to really be entrenched in the everyday operations of the school.
Yeah. And how long were you there? How many years?
7.5 years.
Okay, so yeah, that's a long time. And congratulations on fitting such a need. I've been helping schools now for 10 years. I didn't even know that like marketing and school communications was even a thing. And so many schools need help.
Yes.
And now you're able to touch a lot of schools. So today we got a lot to talk about, and I really want to focus on Instagram.
Yeah.
But the big thing is threads, right? So what's up with threads? Should we be jumping on as a school? What have you been telling your schools that you work with? Um, just share your thoughts, please.
Sure. So the day that Threads was made public, there was such a flurry. Everyone had to be on Threads. You had to go and secure your handle. You have to be on it. It's like a funner version of Twitter. I don't even think that funner is a word, but that's okay. And, what I told my schools, which is what I tell all schools when a new channel comes out, is sit and think about it before you engage on it. If you want to reserve your handle, that's fine, but don't go promoting it to your school constituencies unless you're going to be able to maintain it. Because the worst thing that can happen is you don't want a visitor to go to follow you on a social channel and either A, you have no content, or B, your content is months old. So while Threads is fun and it's a little bit tongue in cheek, it's really important to dive into your audiences and what their needs are and meet them where they are instead of being like, hey, we're on Threads, come follow us. Maybe we'll be consistent, maybe we won't. For the first 3 days, I was like, this is so fun. And then I was like, I'm just going to maintain my own presence on Instagram for now because it's something I'm comfortable with. I know that my audience is there, and I'll keep an eye on Threads to see what kind of momentum it has or doesn't have.
Yeah. And I think a lot of schools have been talking with like leadership or like, we got to get on threads, and then it's like, hold up. First of all, we've got the first day of school coming up. So we've got a little bit on our plate. And then now a lot of the talk, Laurie, is okay, Twitter's making so many changes. They just made the name change. The logo's all changing. Like, what do we do with Twitter? Twitter wasn't that big anyways for our school. My advice kind of has been maybe it is the time to focus your attention on where you get the most reach, the most engagement, which to me for schools is Facebook and Instagram. What do you say to that?
I 100% agree with that. Twitter, in my opinion, has been great for the school to build relationships with media, for the heads of school or other administrators to share their thoughts, to send links to articles, to really have it be more of a B2B relationship tool. Whereas for recruitment purposes, retention purposes, brand awareness, brand stewardship, Facebook and Instagram really is, the place to go. But even within those two channels, I see a lot of schools who are just constantly churning out as much content as they can. And they're cross posting to both channels, which in some cases is appropriate, but others, the demographics of your following can vary and their media behaviors can also vary. So your very long storytelling on Facebook might not necessarily translate well on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and I know you know this because you work with so many schools, I think many schools are really getting their Instagram strategy wrong. Like they just don't understand it. And especially I mean, Lori, it's people like me that are 45 years old or, we didn't grow up with it. So what tips do you have to share with our listeners today on how schools should be using this platform?
Sure. So I am 42, so I sit in your camp also. And I think number one, you have to understand your demographics on Instagram. And the way that the trajectory of Instagram, it might be all over the map now. When I first started Charles E. Smith's Instagram channel, it was pretty much young alumni and high school students. But now, it's more so a lot of lower school parents, elementary school parents, maybe now even middle school parents. So how do you serve all of these audiences on one channel? Combined with that, Instagram is meant to be a visual tool. Great photos, powerful video, the use of stories. And also, because of the Instagram algorithm, you can't churn out content 85 times a day because your followers might not even see it organically. So, what's your posting strategy that will keep your marketing department sane, especially if it's a one-person marketing department, because then that person is a catch-all? And how can you really come up with this symbiotic relationship between posts and stories that really make it a well-run, entertaining, exciting, informative channel?
So it used to be all pictures, right? And then Instagram very much went to stories, which was off of Snapchat, and now we've got Reels, which is basically off of TikTok. But within all of those things, I think like you said, it's very visual. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I feel like schools are getting wrong is way too much text on graphics or flyers as posts. So, what advice do you have? I mean, when you see a good Instagram page for a school, like where are you like, wow, this is a really good channel. These guys are really understand how to use it. How would you describe the content that you're seeing?
Sure. And I think it's a combination of a number of things.
Okay.
As you mentioned, the flyer on a graphic, it doesn't work because then the text is this big, people can't read it. And the way that people are scrolling through the feed, especially if it's a prospective high school student, they're not reading it. So we want to make the use of links in stories. We can be a little more coy in terms of the amount of information we're putting on a post. There's carousels that allow that. And carousels give you a greater probability of having that engagement in the post. Because if you have this really great hook on the first slide, then people are more likely to continue scrolling through to find out more. So maybe it's hear why X school is the greatest in X city. And you have this nice hook that's like, well, why is this school the greatest? And then you divide that content among the subsequent slides. And then by the end, it's visit the link in our stories to register for our open house, or see how our high school seniors are taking over Instagram and really personalizing it to the school. I like to see a very healthy balance of video, of photos, of captions that are informative, but also not too long because, again, people don't read them. They
Mhm.
don't have that kind of wherewithal on Instagram. If you want to, be copy heavy, do it somewhere else. And by somewhere else, I mean nowhere.
Yes, I agree. We have short attention spans, and we do care about those visuals. Okay, I really loved what you just said in regards to carousels. So if you want to use your grid or your news feed basically for Instagram, but that ends up on your grid. If you want to use that for some kind of information or getting them to take more action, the first image can be something that is eye-catching that's going to get them to look at the rest of it, because guess what? If they're not going to read it at all, it's not worth putting it on the first page. You might as well catch the attention of people that want to look at it. And then if they get to that point, I just think it brings up a great point that somebody brought up in a previous podcast episode, where it's like sometimes our like goal is to go viral. Like we want to reach, 1 million people or even 10,000 people. But it's like if you can reach one more of the right people, like the right target audience, the right, the family that goes to your school or the child that's thinking of enrolling or whatever, if you can meet one more, that's super powerful, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's just,
And users, they need to be led to the information. You have to put it directly in front of them. So
mhm.
if you're utilizing a carousel post, it's scroll through to see the amazing colleges that our seniors go to, or scroll through to find out the date of our upcoming open house, or scroll through to find out how you can meet with our head of school and find out more. So people, it needs to be direct and it needs to be extremely obvious. We can't make any assumptions about our readers. If we want to stop the scroll, it has to be eye catching and it has to be directory in that way.
Do you offer any trainings on any of this?
I do. So
Okay.
I've done coaching, I've led a number of workshops and sessions for other organizations that I can easily adapt, for a particular school. Really my methodology and philosophy around social media in schools is it has to work for the marketing department, because I've seen, a lot of uneducated inquiries go into the marketing department. We have all these things going on around our school. You need to be posting, 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 or you have to be on Threads, you have to be on TikTok, you have to be here. But there's no research or data behind it. So I really want to make social media easier for schools,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, for most schools, it's not, social media isn't the only responsibility for many of these professionals.
Okay. My listeners are just like, Andrea, she's your twin. She's like saying all the things. As I mean, there's so many like gurus out there, Laurie, in the world. And of course, us as business owners, we follow a lot of business people, and it's always more, more, more. And you got to do this, and this is the perfect way. But it's like, dude, I only have 24 hours in a day. Like there is only so much I can do well. And so just the fact that you're teaching that. So we're going to talk after this, Laurie, because I do some trainings with my membership group, and I
Okay.
just think you'd be awesome to be able to bring in some new strategies for Instagram. So we'll talk about that. So any listeners listening right now, we're going to get Laurie on, and she's going to like show us some examples as well. But you said a very important thing, like there's no data to support, oh, you got to be on this, you got to be on that. So you've implemented a lot of these strategies with schools, with nonprofits up on Instagram. What kind of results have you seen because of implementing these strategies?
Sure. The biggest thing that I've seen is the more thoughtful the captions are, the more impactful the visuals are, the higher the engagement is. And I think that a lot of organizations and individuals, this isn't specific to schools, where they get tripped up is, oh, we have X thousand amount of followers, or we have 75,000 likes on this post. It's a very Gen Z behavior just to go through and like pictures on Instagram. It's very easy to do. And that's great and that's fine. And the more people that are engaging with your post, the more it'll be served organically. But you really want to see who is sharing your post to stories, who's saving it, who's commenting on it, making sure that you are responding to those comments. And you know what? Sometimes you might get some negative comments. So you have to talk within your school to figure out what that strategy is for responding to negative comments. And let me tell you, it's not to delete negative comments. It's really in your response that can make it even more impactful and more powerful and get more support from, from your following.
Yeah. So you've seen a definite increase in engagement, which includes likes and comments and shares or reposts, those types of things?
Yes, and looking at your Instagram analytics, it's so easy and there's so many data points within the app that can give you a sense of how has our engagement been in the past week? How has it been in the past month? How has it been in the past 90 days? And then you can benchmark month over month, week over week to see what kind of impact you're having. And the nice thing about social media is that there's a lot of room for experimentation. So if you try out some kind of post strategy a couple of times and it doesn't succeed, you can try something else. And if you're going to try something once and perhaps it doesn't work out the way you want it to, try it again because it's like, getting people to understand your school on social media. You can't just put a message in front of them once and expect them to digest it. You have to do it multiple times. And that also rings true for a particular strategy or post or way that you're developing content. You have to benchmark it a couple of times to really see if it has legs or not.
Okay, so you mentioned, kind of posting strategy, and a lot of people ask, and you alluded to it in your introduction of, okay, how should I be posting? Should I be posting always live? Should I schedule things through Meta Business Suite? Meta Business Suite gives me the option to post on both Facebook and Instagram. And knowing that you also respect, hey, I'm a one person shop, I only have so much time, but yet there are different tools, reels and stories and all of that. So what is your best recommendation as far as how to plan out your content and then how to schedule and make it happen?
Sure. So, not everything is going to be able to be planned in advance, especially in a school. There are different things that are going on every day in the classroom. There might be an event or an assembly that's really important that you want to get some video of and then post it on social media. So, I think the approach has to be multi pronged. There's that evergreen content that you can schedule in advance. If, for example, you know that there's a negative perception about your math program, well, then come up with a series of posts that really amplify your math program and your faculty and the cool things that you're doing and how that, sets you apart from other schools in the area. So that's one piece. And then it's also what are your relationships with various faculty members so that you're getting a well-rounded bulk of content from around the school. So if you're just getting nursery school content, of course, they're adorable and they're doing so many fun things. But if you're a nursery to grade 12 school, you're not giving an overall representation of who the school is. So, it's important to come up with those content pillars that can help you remain consistent. And it's not like, let's say you have 5 content pillars. One could be, and I'm really just shooting from the hip here, academics, athletics, arts, social emotional health, and something else. You don't,
Technology.
yeah, perfect.
Yep.
So you don't have to be like, okay, well, in this month, we're going to post 3 times from each of these pillars. It's really just to help you stay consistent and give you a rounded bulk of content to post for your school. So you have your evergreen content, you have your in the moment content that you're either going to take pictures or video of or getting from faculty members. And guess what? If there's something that's not timely or, has a timestamp coming from the classroom, it doesn't have to be posted that day. You can post it the following week, and don't say, well, last week in 7th grade, we did X. It's in 7th grade, we had this amazing unit on yada, yada. And, this is how it ties back to our school's mission. I think also that's where some schools need to go the extra mile is this is what we're doing and this is why. Because a lot of schools say, well, this is what we're doing. And it's like, okay, then why should I care? But it's going that extra step to say, this is how this makes us different, or this is a hallmark or signature of our school. And that's what really helps to round out that social calendar and that grid. And then you can really determine what is your bandwidth for video. I think what the pandemic taught us is that in-house raw video on an iPhone is totally fine. We don't need to be bringing in, a $25,000 video producer once a year to grab great footage. We can do it ourselves. There's Apple tutorials that can, really help teach us some of those skills in that way. And then you can figure out, well, do I need to edit this into a reel? Can I just post a 30-second snippet and, put it up against some great audio and leave it at that? It's all about working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, I love it. I feel like I'm in class right now, Laurie, and I love it. Now, as in regards to literally putting that content on
Sure.
to social media, do you suggest using like a third party app, or do you use Meta Business Suite, or do you post right in Instagram? How do you do it? Or how do you
Sure.
suggest to do it?
So for posts, just posting to your feed on, both Facebook and Instagram, use Meta Business Suite. It gives you analytics. It's easy to schedule. It's right within your browser. It doesn't cost anything. If you do have other channels in your vernacular, there's Loom, there's Later, there's Agora Pulse, there's Hootsuite. There's so many. But for the vast majority of the way that schools are using social media, we don't need to go insane. We need basic analytics because we don't have social media data analysts on our team. We
Right.
need basic information that can give us, reasoning to make some decisions. And then it's also about, determining how often you can post and how feasible it is. If it's twice a week, great. If it's 4 times a week, fine. If you're going to tell me, hey, Lori, I'm going to post twice a day, 5 days a week, I'm going to tell you that you're nuts. But, if you come back to me with well, this is why I'm doing it, then perhaps I'll get on board. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, for scheduling purposes, you can also schedule in Business Suite on your phone through the app. And then of course, if you're doing Instagram stories or whatnot, that's easiest to be done straight through the app.
Yeah. Yeah. You try to do that on like your computer and it's a disaster. So
So,
I love it. This was so good. I just lost my train of thought because I was gonna emphasize something else that you said. But I love it. So you work with a lot of different organizations, nonprofits, schools, and we've kind of alluded to this already. But I think if you could just describe succinctly three of the most frequent aspects that these types of like schools are getting wrong with Instagram. What are the three things that you see schools getting wrong with Instagram?
sure. So I think the first thing is a lot of schools don't see social media as part of their marketing program. And there's so many other elements of marketing. There's the print aspect, there's your website, there's your brand, there's all these other things. And somehow social media exists on an island. We have pictures, we have video, we have ideas in our head we're just going to post all the time instead of sitting down with the head of school and the leadership team to say, what are our strategic objectives? How do we need to be using social media? What is the behavior of individuals on Facebook and Instagram? And how can we reach them in the best way through social media? Because, the way that I see it, and a lot of schools and other organizations don't see this, is it takes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a dozen times to see a message in order for it to resonate. So I've had schools come to me that are like, well, I've been posting about our open house for like 2 weeks and nobody signed up. And it's okay, well, so what? Who cares? A, social media, you're using it for a brand awareness tool. B, you should be doing other things to recruit for your open house or whatever your event is. And are you looking at your Google Analytics to actually see what that traffic looks like from Instagram? Because people also, they're not going to come to your website and be like, I'm signing up for this open house, I'm signing up for your $35,000 tuition ticket. It just doesn't work that way. So, the sales cycle for a school, and calling it a sales cycle can be crass, but it can
It
take
is.
a year, 2 years, 3 years. There are schools that are recruiting for their kindergarten when these kids are turning a year old. but you have to think of it as a long game and a short game. So if you can manage those two perspectives, you're already on your way, because you have to be strategic, but then you also have to be tactical. And I know that it can be hard to toggle between the two, but it can also, keep you a lot saner.
Yeah. So that would be one thing, is just incorporating social media into the overall marketing strategy. That's one of the things that schools are getting wrong. What do you have two other things that you just
Yeah.
often see schools getting wrong?
They're not looking at their analytics
Okay.
ever.
Yeah.
So they don't know what posts are people are engaging with, or, they don't know that their reels or their stories are getting that many more views than their posts. So they're just constantly churning into the feed. So it can really help you make decisions. And then, of course, if your board is very vested in social media, but they don't understand how to use it, you can put some of this data in front of the board to say, we're knocking down our social media frequency from 4 times a week to twice a week in posts, because that's what our data is telling us. And I think, for the third thing is having that strategic lens of, this is what we need to post around because it aligns with the strategic objectives of the school, instead of just, oh my God, we have all these cute kids, because that only gets you so far. But if it's, we're trying to attract this profile or these profiles of a student, and this is what's interesting to them. Maybe it's cooking in school, maybe it's a robust athletics program, maybe it's an amazing theater program, really partnering with the admission team to understand what those frequently asked questions are, and then answering them through social media, because more likely than not, more than one person has that same question.
Yeah. I love that. So your number 2 point was what I was going to talk to you about earlier, was the analytics,
Mhm.
because I think it is so important. We do report cards for, we do social media management for over 80 schools across the country. And so we do quarterly reports, but I really suggest when you're in charge of a school yourself, it's very easy to do a monthly report. But you can be overwhelmed with the data inside of your platforms, both Facebook and Instagram and even Twitter. But my suggestion, and I just did a breakout session at the National School Public Relations Association, it's like, don't bring up a number that you can't explain,
Right?
because even though engagement, and you talked about engagement ultimately drives reach. And I can't really explain exactly the definition of engagement with the likes and shares and comments and all of that, and how it adds it up but ultimately that good engagement leads to more eyeballs seeing our content. And so I can explain maybe the growth of our followers, which is good, but then how many people are we reaching with our story? Is
Right.
it is it impressions, or is it a reach of this many different accounts? And so I just think that's important. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah. And, I think that a lot of individuals don't understand the difference between reach and impressions.
Right.
Reach are the number of unique individuals that are seeing your content. Impressions are the number of eyeballs that aren't unique, that are seeing it. So you want to see increases in each. You want to see that number going up month over month, 90 days over 90 days. But and I know that it can seem very daunting. Like, there's all these analytics, there's this whole dashboard. What do I need to look at? So what I teach a lot of my coaching clients is, here are the top 4 to 6 analytics that you need to be looking at. This is what you pull on a monthly basis. You don't need to dig into, you don't need to dissect every single post and what the engagement rate was. One nod to Twitter, which, I wish I didn't nod to, but I will anyway, is their analytics dashboard calculates your engagement rate for you
Mm.
on each post, which is so nice. And then you can average it out and whatnot. So Instagram, if you're listening, that's a great thing to have, instead of having to do math yourself. But,
Right.
I think that there's all of these different nuggets of data, especially if you're driving traffic to your website. Because if social media went away tomorrow, what's left is your website. So you want to make sure that you're getting people there to read more about your school, sign up for an open house, inquire about admission. That's the next step. So if they're just consuming your social media and not doing anything else, and they're a prospective parent, you're losing them somewhere. So that's why incorporating Google Analytics into that data vernacular is very important. And again, yes, the gravitation to GA4 has been a little challenging, but you still get that traffic data. And I
Yeah.
had a client, it's a K-8 school in Canada, that they're churning out content constantly on Instagram, and they were getting like 15 visits a month to their website from the channel. So I'm like, there's a disconnect here. So how can we fix it?
Yeah. I think that it's really important too with the the numbers and the reach and not getting overwhelmed with all of that. So that uh, everything you're saying is so spot on to what I have trained in the past too. So this is really good. So as we wrap up, first of all, I want you to share what are some of the best stories that you've seen shared by students on Instagram, because that's one of my best tips for this year is like, I really think student voice and student storytelling is so important. So do you have any examples from schools that you've worked with, or maybe back with your work within a school, of students using this platform to help tell the story of the school?
So what I love is, and again, this takes administration approval, is to give some of your older students the keys to your Instagram account. And this can be done in a couple of different ways, but those takeovers and having that user generated content, it's authentic, it's impactful, it's peer to peer, or it's peer to prospective parents, or it's peer to current parent who might be thinking about leaving the school. So having that perspective of, you know, taking a phone down to the athletics fields and really hyping kids up during practice, or having a press pass in English class or in social studies class and having a debate and putting that, on blast. These are the things that not only showcase the student experience, but also highlight faculty expertise. And it's really, it's the faculty that make these schools operate every single day. So how can we sort of straddle both? And with the faculty, they're busting their butts every single day, that they don't always have time to be like, oh well, this is the information that I want to give to marketing, but put a camera in their face and let them show their great work directly to however many followers that you have. I've had students sign an Instagram takeover contract so they understand exactly what they're doing. I've had middle school students have a press pass and take pictures throughout their day, and then they've sent them to me and I've uploaded it to them.
Okay.
But I think that anything that you can do to showcase a day in the life of a student and a day in the life of different students, because not every student follows the same path, not every student has the same interests, and really showcasing that, diversity across all facets of your school can really give that well-rounded image of who you are. And so prospective families and students can be like, wow, I want to be like them. I want my 5-year-old to be like this person when they're 17 years old.
Yeah.
And that content is priceless.
Yeah, that just gave me a great idea. Just, the day in the life. I mean, we have our school's very, very small, 300 kids, K through 12. So, there's like 25 kids in a class. And over half of like the senior class gets work release where they're going out and they're getting real jobs. That like my daughter had like a customer service marketing internship basically. And that was awesome. Her roommate that she's going to be rooming with in college was she was doing engineering work like in a lab, writing lab reports and doing testing on real products. And it's like, I just think that people don't realize that our kids are getting some of these opportunities. And whether you give them kind of the keys to the castle and say, okay, you can post live through Instagram stories or whatever, or they document it and get it to you. But how are you going to make sure that that student voice, those stories are told? Because that's going to like dramatically impact your reach and your engagement, I feel.
Absolutely. And I think that giving your audience an understanding of your portrait of a graduate, whether you're a K-5 school, a pre-K to 8 school, a JK to 12 school, whatever you are, you have that image in your mind or images in your mind of who you want your students to be when they graduate. What tools are you equipping them with? How are you educating them in a way that they can go out into the world and make these great decisions and go on to college and do amazing things?
Mhm.
And then what are the stories that the students themselves can tell that support that? It all has to tie back into your mission. It all has to tie back into your ultimate objectives, of who you want your students to be.
Yeah. Okay, by now you've realized that Lori and I could talk about social media and schools all day long,
For hours.
uh, for hours, but some people only have so far of a drive to work. So, as we wrap up, what's the best social media tip? You've given us so much to think about, so many great strategies and all of that. So, if you just were to give your best tip to our school storytellers out there, what would it be?
In my opinion, it would be to come up and be very proactive and be very upfront about how you want to use social media. You are the expert in your school. So whether that's to your institutional advancement director or your head of school or to your board or to all of those audiences, to really do your homework to say, this is who our audiences are. This is how, in my opinion, and in the research that I've done, how the school should be using social media. This is how often we're going to post. This is the type of content that we're going to post, and be very proactive about it. Otherwise, you'll have, 99 different voices telling you how to post on social media. Some will have merit. Some will just be like, well, we have all this great stuff. Let's just, do it all the time. So really to set out a plan for yourself, put it in writing, make it a standard operating procedure, and then follow through and then measure. That can really, make social media fun and not an everyday chore.
Yeah. Okay, I remember now I was going to ask you this. I talk with some schools that maybe they use an outside party and they're comparing their reach for their school compared to maybe other Facebook pages, like a business. So we know, and I don't know what it is on Instagram, but Facebook, the reach of a business page is organically without paying for it, it's like 2%.
Right.
But what I've found with most of my schools, I really can reach about 33% of my followers. And so I tell my folks that I'm chatting with, it's like that should be your goal. I mean, if you can get more than that, awesome. So basically, if you have 1,000 followers, if you only had if 20% or 2%, that's like reaching 20 people, right?
Right.
But a school should be reaching 333.
Mhm.
And if you can reach more than that, great. But sometimes I think our schools are comparing themselves to some business averages, which are different than schools. So I don't know if you see the same thing. I work mainly with public schools.
Mhm.
You, I think, work with all the schools. So what would you say? Do you have any realm of like what is good reach for a post when you're comparing it at least to the number of followers that you currently have?
You know what? I don't. And that's a great question. And in terms of data for schools specifically, there's not a lot of data.
Mhm.
So from my vantage point, you have to benchmark yourself against yourself.
Right.
And a way that you can help amplify what that reach is, what that engagement is make sure that you have a close group of ambassadors that are helping to promote your content, that are commenting, that are sharing,
Yeah.
that, of course, you don't want to be stuffing your engagement too much. But, really your parent ambassadors, or if you want to come up with a social media ambassador program for people that perhaps can't be as entrenched in the school because of other responsibilities, is have them lift you up and really be those engagement creators or engagement starters that will help amplify all of the efforts that you're doing. And then you can benchmark month over month for perhaps this coming school year. This is a great opportunity to really gain an understanding of your engagement rate. And my hope is that at some point there is this social media, analysis for schools that somebody comes up with, and we'll probably make a lot of money for doing it, but we'll really give some concrete data points because there's a lot of nonprofit benchmarking. There's M&R benchmarks, there's other information out there, but schools is such a different animal. And, even generally, I was speaking to a school professional recently who said, I just came from the B2B nonprofit world and schools are so different. And I'm like, yes. And I was like, it's great and amazing and you will love it, but it's a much different mindset. So I
Right.
think that social media has to be thought of in the same way.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. All right. People want to know now, okay, where can I get some more Lori? Potentially, how could my school benefit? So, first of all, what's the best way to stay connected to you, Lori?
Sure. So I am on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Elevate Marketing Strategy. And I post a couple times a week. I post typically 2 to 3 times a week. I post in stories quite often. People can DM me there. They can follow me. I have tips, I have freebies, I have worksheets that I give away using Instagram. Individuals can email me, which is Laurie, Laurie, at Elevate Marketing Strategy. And I'm happy to engage and connect and help and brainstorm. So feel free to reach out to me in a venue that's comfortable to you.
Awesome. And we'll put your email address and your Instagram in the show notes, making
Great.
sure that people can reach out. And I promise any of you who are members, I'm going to get with Lori because I think this would be a really powerful webinar presentation on just some of these Instagram strategies that could really be helpful as well. This has been so fun to learn from you today, Lori. I appreciate your passion. You are definitely making a big difference with schools. And so thank you so much for taking time with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody, let's just make this the best school year yet with some of these strategies. You really can reach more people, celebrate your students and staff in new ways, and really make some meaningful connections. So until next time, you guys keep telling those stories. Bye, Lori.
Bye.